I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you are new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And you can catch me here Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sundays. All right. We got a pretty busy show tonight. We will do call in after the show tonight. A lot of things to talk about here. I do want to go ahead and get started. Max will be here around 6:20, 6:30. So I do have a quick story that I do want to go ahead and jump into. Quick shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Let's go ahead and give them their props. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories: members, Sabbies, Sabsters, Sabinators, and of course, the ultimate. All of their names are listed here. You can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen. And I want to give a quick shout out to a new Sabby patron. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Stephen Shuttleworth. Whoop, whoop. Thank you guys so much. Really do appreciate your support. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and pop up that thumbnail to show you what we're going to talk about tonight. Interesting stories here. At least I think so. Tonight, we are going to discuss, of course, Max Blumenthal will be here at 6:20-ish, 6:30-ish. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about that rally. We're also going to discuss Donald Trump goes to Ohio. If you haven't done so, please go ahead and take that poll, which is pinned to the live chat. Do you think that this could actually hurt Biden's re-election? We're also going to discuss Hakeem Jeffries is confronted. Yes, Jose and his peeps laid the smackdown on Hakeem Jeffries. And I'm also going to discuss Kshama Sawant caste system win. So yes, Kshama Sawant has done it again. Another victory for people there in Seattle. If you are not aware to what has been happening, let me go ahead and show you. So we're going to go up and bring that story up first. This is a huge win in Seattle. We're going to play this clip. And then there's also an interview that someone had with Kshama Sawant about this issue. And then I'm going to explain a little bit what the caste system actually means, because a lot of times I think when we talk about a caste system, we think of a country like India, but the US also has a caste system as well. So let's go ahead and get into that. It was led by Kshama Sawant. Obviously, this issue was one that was personal to her. Now, she had an interview. For those of you who are just joining, Seattle has just become the first city in the United States to ban caste discrimination. So let's go ahead and show you part of this interview with Kshama Sawant, where she goes into a little bit more detail about this. So here we go.
Let alone oppression, has not even been acknowledged really by any city in the United States. We don't have statistical data for Seattle, but we do know anecdotally from many tech workers who have come to me personally and told me that they face discrimination. As myself coming from a South Asian background, I grew up in India. I have been aware of the caste system, painfully aware all my life, throughout my childhood. And I know that my life is in no way unique. Caste is ever present in India, and it is important that we acknowledge it. This is absolutely the result of a grassroots efforts by many organizations alongside my socialist city council office. If you are watching this and you live in the Seattle region and you care about banning caste discrimination, then you have to be with us on the front lines. You cannot be you cannot just be watching this on the internet.
Hello and welcome to the News Minute. In a move that could ensure greater protection for Dalit workers in United States, particularly in Seattle City, one of its council members, Kshama Sawant, has proposed a legislation to ban caste-based discrimination in the city in work.
So this was actually before it passed. This was right before it passed. So I want to go ahead and scoot up just a little bit here.
That's why I really appreciate you covering this story, because we need support not only from all across America, but all across India as well, in order to make sure that we put pressure on the city council to vote yes on this. And as far as your question about is it rampant, actually, that's part of the problem, that caste as a source of discrimination, let alone oppression, has not even been acknowledged really by any city in the United States. So if we are able to win this, actually, this will be historic, not only because this will be the first time in Seattle that caste will be legally recognized as a source of discrimination.
Let's pause there for just a second. If you notice, Kshama Sawant said, we put pressure on the city councilors to get this legislation through, and it did pass. So this was right before it passed. So this is what I said before about having that grassroots movement on the outside, which is what they had there in Seattle. Kshama has a lot of experience with this, obviously. They had a grassroots effort to put the pressure on the city councilors in Seattle to get this legislation through. Shout out to my comrade JB, says, congratulations to our family in Seattle. And Nick from RBN is actually going to be in Seattle soon to help Kshama with workers strike back. So just FYI, if you guys were not aware of that. So let's go back into this.
In employment, in housing and education, but also because we hope that it will be historic in that this first in the nation legislation can then be won by working people, by immigrant community members in other cities as well. And we don't have statistical data for Seattle, but we do know anecdotally from many tech workers who have come to me personally and told me that they face discrimination. And in addition to that, we also know from other cases. For example, in the August of 2022, which is last year, the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing won an appeals court ruling to proceed with a lawsuit that alleges that a Dalit engineer at Cisco Systems, which is, as many of your viewers know, is a multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerate, was actively targeted. So this Dalit engineer was actively targeted by his dominant caste managers. He was denied professional opportunities, raise, promotions because of his caste background. And in fact, in their report about this case, the New York Times wrote, quote, the technology giant got away with ignoring the persistent caste discrimination because American laws don't yet recognize caste discrimination as a valid form of exclusion.
Okay, that answers your question there. Someone just put it in the chat. I just lost it. Someone said, wouldn't this be illegal? Where did it go? I'm so sorry. I just lost it. But someone had put it in the chat just a second ago. Would it be illegal technically in the US because of the Constitution? I don't know why. Oh, here it is. Dr. Cat. Wouldn't any kind of caste system be illegal under the US Constitution? Well, that's the thing. She just explained that technically we actually didn't have any law against that. So
allowing companies to operate in willful ignorance of the terrifying realities of caste. So this is exactly why my office has put forward this ordinance, because it's not even acknowledged. So this is the first step in order to ban caste discrimination. But in addition to that, we will also need to fight for enforcement.
And I heard your speech. In your speech, you have said that caste discrimination goes unreported and it's often hidden. Can you elaborate on that?
This piece is important.
Yes, part of the reason it's hidden is because it's not something that affects the wider population of working people. It is something that that specifically people of South Asian origin or other immigrant origin are affected by. But as we have said repeatedly, and as I've said as a socialist, that we cannot address caste oppression unless working people as a whole unite to fight against it, because racism, sexism, caste oppression, other kinds of oppression really are they stem from class society as a whole, from thousands of years, of course, we know in India. But right now, the global system of capitalism benefits from dividing ordinary people into these kinds of groups, across gender, race, or caste. And that's why we want to bring this out in the open. And part of the reason it's not known, as I said, is because not very many American working people know about it. And we know from South Asian American workers here that it is happening. And it's not for nothing that, as I mentioned, the Cisco case happened, but also something very important has happened in the last year or so, which is the California State University system, which is the largest four-year public university system in the United States, has recently banned caste discrimination in addition to a couple of other universities. Now, this is very important because when we talk about Cal State, this is a university system of 23 different campuses across California State. So it's really important that the campaign there by rank and file students and by supported by the faculty there has won this, because it is by winning this, they have put the question of caste discrimination out in the forefront in the first place.
Okay, now let's talk about what caste discrimination looks like. I have a video here. I'm not going to play the entire video, obviously, but this guy really breaks it down. Let me scoot past. Here we go. A caste system in America.
Work and subscribe to get the latest alert as it relates to my content when it's posted. I became aware of the caste system based on my grandfather being born in India. As I grew up, I often wondered why Indians would at times ask me my name and make that connection to my ancestors. Really, I found out by doing 23andMe and the DNA breakdown, and also Ancestry, that I can confirm that the caste system is solely based on human classification.
See? This is what I was talking about before when we've showed that chart on this show where it breaks down the economic system in the United States. This is a different one, but it's similar in the sense that let me go back so we can look at it a little bit better. This is what he's referring to. And please help bear with me if I mispronounce. Just bear with me, please. So you have the top of the pyramid, you have the bottom of the pyramid. So Sudra at the bottom, commoners, peasants, servants. You have Vaishya next, which is merchants and landowners. You have Kshatriya, which are warriors and kings. And then you have Raman, which are priests and academics up at the top. So let's go on.
I can confirm that the caste system is solely based on human classification. I became more aware of the caste system on my arrival in England when my interactions with Indian immigrants began. It was clear to me that those who I made connections with looked at my connections to Jamaica and somewhat delimited me from being able to intermingle within their frame.
That means, so they looking at his background. They looked at his background and that determined basically how far he could go professionally. This is really sad if you think about it, but this does happen.
I'm unaware of the meaning of my name. Many Indians are aware that my name highlights the social status of my ancestors. One thing is for sure, I have no intentions of changing my name to reflect Western naming conventions or traditions.
And some people have. So for people wondering, well, how can they tell? How do they know what background you're coming from? So one of the hints that he just gave you is the surname. The surname is how they know. Now, he very boldly said, he has no intentions of changing his name. Some people have. There have been people I've met here in the US that did change their name because they didn't want to have that connection. And that's not just people that have come from India, but different countries as well.
Which brings me to the reality that many Indians in United Kingdom had changed their names to ensure they would not be singled out during the application process or be identified as someone connected to a low caste. It also became clear to me that social stratification and classification were important within the English system. For example, while I was teaching in England, if an adult came to my class while I was teaching, they would always go to the white teaching assistant for matters that would require me, the classroom teacher, to address. I watched for 4 years the same event taking place over and over again. To explain this solely based on race would be inadequate. The system of stratification based on color was again highlighted when I traveled and had to stop over in Denmark on my way back to United Kingdom from New York. During the stopover, I was greeted by 4 armed officers who demanded to have my travel documents.
See, color is a factor too. And I'm glad he mentioned this because obviously, if you know, not everyone from India has the same skin tone, right? Like there are people from India that are lighter skin, more fair skin, and there are people from India that have a darker complexion, like he does. So he's pointing this out as well.
Of course, you all know, if you have a stopover in Europe on a connecting flight, you would be placed in a secure location. While you might say this is profiling, what causes profiling? People are profiled because they are out of line, they need to be kept in line, or to ensure that they are reminded of their position or status. In many cases, there is no ill will by those who conduct these security checks and so forth. However, these actions have allowed me to understand that a structure for establishing status exists within many countries. A structure aimed at keeping one set of people within their space. The concept of a caste system has shed light on this structure. The critical question is there a caste system in the United States? So what is a caste system, you may ask? In summary, a caste system is a form of social stratification that is based on occupation, purity, historical roots, and of course, race. Caste is used to describe stratified societies based on hereditary groups. Let us not forget that America, in its institutionalization of slavery, created a system that created the most recognizable social stratification based on race. That remains today within our structure. While I have never used the word caste to describe our system, the recent work of Isabel Wilkerson sheds light on the need to examine United States racial structure using the pillars of a caste system. In her book, Wilkerson examines the similarities between the caste system in India and race in America. For example, she highlights Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s visit to India. In her example, she states that Dr. King was a special guest of the Prime Minister of India. On one particular day, Dr. King visited a school for the untouchables, the lowest caste in India. During the introduction by the principal of the school, Dr. King was described as the untouchable from America. The reality is the Indians knew of the struggles in America and the status of Dr. King. Many Indian-born academics now working in the United States are now able to see America's stratified society through the lens of a caste system.
Yep.
While many Americans may be horrified by someone connecting their system to the caste system, please remember, while the United States was supposedly founded on life, freedom, and the pursuit of happiness, we continue to have the lack of value for Black women and men in the United States, which leaves many families asking for the system to take its knee off their necks. In 2020, the world became more aware of America's structured system of oppression more than ever before. Let us not forget that America's history can be established based on the rise of capitalism, which coincide with the racial order in the United States. My arrival in the United States has allowed me to see that a structure is present. For example, when I go shopping, I could be asked to find the correct size for someone who is white, or if I'm at the airport, someone who is white believes that it's okay to stand in front of me. I am forced to believe that racism alone will not account for this structure.
I just want to comment here for a second because I think there's something important to say. I have a friend of mine her parents are from India, but she was born in the United States and she had a sister. And one of the things she told me a while back was that people would treat her differently than the way that they treated her sister because her sister had darker skin. And she said, yeah, they're both Indian American. But even like when she was growing up as a kid, she said like she seemed to get more respect from people than her sister did. And so, yeah, this is still, it's still an issue. And I appreciate the fact that he's talking about his own experience as well. So colorism is a factor. And I think this doesn't just happen. When we talk about colorism, it's not just an issue in a country like India. It's also an issue in Latin American countries as well. My dad saw this issue when he was stationed in South Korea. He noticed this was also a thing. Like, he would go to the store and he said there were just aisles of like skin bleaching cream, which you just don't see something like that in the United States. Yes, we sell it here, but you don't see like aisles and aisles of it. And so I think this is a global issue. It's not just an issue here in the US, not just an issue in India. It is a global issue. Let's go on.
Therefore, I welcome the thoughts outlined by Wilkerson in her book, Caste, The Origin of Our Discontent. Wilkerson uses the framework of caste to analyze United States societal structure based on race. Wilkerson also believes that racism alone will not explain how our current system of oppression has continued over the longest while. Let me also end by saying, Wilkerson also highlighted that the Nazis in Germany at one point refused to adopt key elements of the United States system of racism based on the system being too rigid for theirs. I would recommend that you read this book. Please email me if you would like to join our book club. Our book club would focus on caste.
Yeah, definitely check this out. He has other videos on his channel. The name of this video is called A Caste System in America, and the channel is The Learning Journey with Dr. Jawala. So definitely check out his channel. I thought he explained that very well. Now, Kshama Sawant actually, let me come out of here. Sorry. Kshama Sawant actually shared this information on her Twitter, which apparently I forgot to post here. I'm so sorry. Oh, bud. See what happens when you start earlier? Like, sometimes you forget things, but that's okay. It's all over her Twitter because she posted multiple times. So I'll just go ahead and take you there so you can see it. We'll share this here. She has been, talking about this on Twitter multiple times. And I think that if you don't follow her on Twitter, follow her. And then I'll show you. See, there's an article that she shared about this, but then there was also an announcement. I mean, there's several announcements. Breaking: the Seattle City Council has passed the first in the nation legislation. Oh, let me put this up here. Sorry. Make this bigger. Yes. Has passed the first in the nation legislation to protect people from discrimination based on their caste. The ordinance was sponsored by Kshama Sawant. So she has been sharing this information. I don't know if a lot of people have seen this yet, because I feel like this should have more. Oh, yeah, it has over 2,921 likes. So never mind. But hopefully, like, more people will highlight it because, like I said, like she's been tweeting this out over and over. Here it is here. Landmark, historic, monumental. It's interesting that we didn't have this passed already in the United States. And here's a tweet here she retweeted that said, the resistance is to recognizing caste discrimination alongside racial discrimination is not new, but it shows caste Hindu diaspora communities' anxiety around acknowledging their own role in perpetuating inequality within the larger South Asian community. So yeah, definitely check that out. I think she had some more. Yeah. And Tacoma Mike also retweeted this as well. Kshama Sawant led the way on $15 minimum wage, and now she has led the way on banning caste discrimination. So when we talk about like these grassroots efforts, I mean, she's doing it. Like, and I think this is really important for people to understand. Kshama Sawant is not someone that's just online. Like, she's actually out there in the street, like fighting for these types of movements. And I think we need more of that. We need more of that. Because I don't think she tweets that much anyway, to be honest. Let me see if I can pull up this thing here from Ron. Yeah, I don't think she really tweets that much. Maybe usually just like a retweet from her usually. But most of her time is spent, out there on the ground, helping the people and being within the community. So I think that's important for people to note. Another quick shout out here. I don't want to forget about this because I know Ron is probably going to be like, I know she did not forget to mention this again. Because I told him, I said, oh my God, I forgot. Ron Pacone has been so gracious to continue to cover this. He was on this show talking about this a while back. And this is about net neutrality. So I do want to give you guys an update on this. Ban facial recognition at live events. So this is important. It says the music industry is reeling at news that the owner of an iconic New York City venue at Madison Square Garden is using facial recognition to identify, harass, and ban people from his venues. So this invasive biometric surveillance isn't safe, especially for Black and brown people who have been falsely arrested or ejected from public places due to the tech's baked in discrimination. Now, this is a part of a larger issue, which is net neutrality. Eric, if you can put the link to this in the chat when you get a chance so people can sign the petition for this. But Ron Pacone has been talking about this over and over again, that they were trying to get this passed in the Senate so that we have more protection here in reference to censorship and in reference to tech and in reference to the internet and how much information they can capture from you and how much they cannot capture from you. So it's really important that we're paying attention to these types of things, especially facial recognition. I can see that going incredibly wrong. I mean, let's be real. Tech does break sometimes. It doesn't operate the way that it's supposed to. But that's scary. Like, I don't want to go to a concert and then find out that like there's technology there that's trying to scan my face. Do you want them scanning your face? I don't think so. So these kind of things, like, we need to be, very aware of. And then it goes on to say, but does this make us safe? And that's the point. I think that's the pro they're trying to have for this, is that it does make us safer. And it goes on to say here, the recent study by Georgetown University Center on Privacy and Technology found that face recognition doesn't work well enough to reliably serve the purposes for which law enforcement agencies themselves want to use it, because the tech constantly misidentifies people. It actually puts people in danger of bodily and psychological harm through false arrests and police violence, and does nothing to keep people safe. This kind of reminds me of this show called Person of Interest. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that show. It's actually a really good show. But they had like technology where they would try to identify people through facial recognition. Now in that show, it tends to work so great. But in real life, there can be mistakes there. Also, what if you have a twin? What if you have a twin sister or an identical twin brother or something like that? Imagine how that can go incredibly wrong. It goes on to say, even if facial recognition technology did work perfectly, the threat poses to human society and basic liberty by enabling ubiquitous and impossible to avoid monitoring of entire populations. It far outweighs any potential benefits. The big picture, we need to stop trying to solve systemic problems like poverty and injustice with invasive, racist, and discriminatory technology. Like, this is not an answer. This is not the answer to the problems here. And this is important too. Which venues already use this technology? Now, I don't want to scare you guys, but you probably want to know this. This includes Madison Square Garden, Radio City Music Hall, and Beacon Theater, only because it's required to by New York City law. Now, it's supposedly not a secret that they have that at those venues, but it says here that MSG Entertainment has been upfront about its use of facial recognition at those New York venues. So I don't know about you guys, but if you have been to Madison Square Garden or the Beacon Theater or Radio City Music Hall, that's kind of scary. I'm sorry. Where he says they use it in some malls, yikes. I do not like that. So I may think twice about going to Madison Square Garden. And it says our venues. Okay. Are venues and artists pushing back against this technology? In recent years, Fight for the Future and prominent musicians like Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine led campaigns that got more than 40 of the world's largest music festivals to say they won't use facial recognition at their events. All right, shout out to Tom Morello. Let's give him his props, okay? Ticketmaster also cut ties with a facial recognition startup after the backlash. Why aren't lawmakers doing something about it? Now, this is the part you need to know. Ultimately, we need lawmakers to act and pass laws to protect all of us from facial recognition technology. Cities, including San Francisco, Boston, Minneapolis, and Jackson, Mississippi, have passed bans on government and law enforcement use of facial recognition. All right, shout out to my city. Shout out to Boston. All right. And Portland, Oregon has banned use by public places. Federally, lawmakers have introduced the Facial Recognition and Biometric Technology Moratorium Act, which would protect people across the U.S. from government and law enforcement use, but there hasn't been a federal bill to address how private companies like MSG use the technology. We need to keep pressure on lawmakers to act on this issue. So this is another thing similar to what Kshama Sawant was just telling us a couple of minutes ago. They put the pressure on the lawmakers. So yes, Eric, yes, need laws and regulations around this. Absolutely. I could just see this going, incredibly wrong. Incredibly wrong, especially if you may kind of look like someone or you have an identical twin. Like, I don't know. This is not a good idea. So Ron Pacone has really been, trying to educate people about this and letting people know that, look, we need to pay more attention to this. And you can reach out. Of course, they're asking for your information. You can reach out. You'll put in your name and all this stuff here. I don't even like to enter my zip code, to be honest. I don't need people knowing all that, but unfortunately that is required. Your phone number is not required, but facial recognition is not a good idea, guys. I could just see this going incredibly wrong. So I'm pretty sure you don't like that either. All right. I do see Max is here. Max, give me a thumbs up whenever you're ready. But yeah. Okay, you're ready. All righty. All right, let's bring you in.
Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
All right, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great.
Good. I just want to tell everyone we're live on Twitter.
Cool beans.
All right, we're live. Well, that's the other live. So, what do you want to talk about?
Oh dear. I think you know. All right, guys. So
I never know. I got so many balls up in the air. I never know.
My special guest tonight is Max Blumenthal. He's the founder of The Gray Zone. Welcome back, Max.
Thanks for having me back.
So it was great to finally see you in person in DC. It was nice to meet you and your wife, Anya. I don't usually get to go down to DC too often, but I've been there twice within the past couple of months because of rallies. So,
yeah, we didn't get to talk too much because it was just chaotic, but
yeah,
it was a good time, and it really showed how we together can actually mobilize people to get offline.
Yeah, I think so. So I know, in reference to the rally, there were criticisms of the rally beforehand, and even though the rally is already over, there's still attacks about the rally. Obviously, I'm sure you saw that video from Rachel Maddow where she tried to say it was something that it wasn't, all of those types of things. And I know I did see, like, engagement between you and Jackie Lukeman on Twitter about the article that she had written about the event. And I just want to get your take on it. Like, how do you feel about the event overall? Do you feel that it was great? Like, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great turnout, just my opinion, compared to other rallies that I've been to. But how do you feel about it? And how do you feel about some of the criticism?
Well, I felt great about the rally, and none of the criticism felt like it took place in an alternate universe. If you actually there was no, what were they saying? It was a bigoted rally, or it was, or Rachel Maddow's, in de facto coalition against this rally with people from the professional sectarian left was saying that it was a bunch of conspiracy theorists and crazy people, and she used the lowest tactics possible, trying to pick off the few mental cases you see at any rally of any dissident group, and trying to portray the entire rally as reflective of their views. And maybe they weren't mental cases, but they were definitely people whose presentation was going to obviously be used to discredit the rally. But if you actually listen to the speakers and what they were saying, it was consistent with everything that those of us who've been in anti-war politics have been saying since the post 9/11 era, since the Iraq War, including my own speech, which was, just watch my speech. What can you argue with there? So the critics obviously had it wrong, and if they succeeded in anything, it was just in depressing turnout and confusing other people in activist circles who are more easily suggestible, don't think for themselves, and are not part of what I call the critical left. But the rally was, given everything it was up against, it was a huge success. And as I said, it really demonstrated our ability, to all of us who were there, who were doing these kinds of live streams and media work, and the work we've been doing for years. It demonstrated our ability to actually mobilize people, get them out in the streets, and to start to affect the strategic calculus of the war planners. Another thing that made this rally different was that I've been going to anti-war rallies for years. If you can even call them that, they're often like small gatherings of like 20 people, and they never get any media. This one actually did break through. It broke through into mainstream media markets across the country. And I posted some of that on my Twitter account, some of the local news reports. They're very fair. And they just showed that Americans are protesting, sending over 80 billion, 100 billion of their money to Ukraine, and they're calling for an end to NATO. That was actually communicated in these rallies and in these media reports. One Fox News report, I think it was broadcast in Dayton, Ohio, quoted David Swanson, veteran peace activist from Charlottesville, Virginia, declaring from the stage that the U.S. is blocking peace in Ukraine.
Yep.
So that was a huge success. And besides the Rachel Maddow piece, there was another MSNBC report from the scene that was somewhat fair. It wasn't propagandistic in the way Maddow's was. So I just look at I saw the rally as very positive, and I thought that reflected badly on the people who claim to be anti-war, who are attacking it. We got what we expected from Maddow.
Yeah, I think even for me, like, I was there before the rally started. So for people who have seen that clip from Rachel Maddow, number one, I didn't see any Proud Boys there. For people who are saying it was just right-wing people, there were a lot of lefties there. And I know because I spoke to them. For people who are saying it was just all white, that is not true. Obviously, I was there. Garland Nixon was there. The African Socialist People's Party Uhuru movement was there. And they spoke in front of the White House. Nobody's saying that, Max.
Well, whatever. Whatever. A lot of the critics could have just asked to be a part of it, and they would have been included too. I know a number of the speakers just simply approached the organizers and said, "Can I speak?" And they were allowed to. So it really is bad faith, narcissism, and egoism that's been reflected in the attacks. And the rally, as I said, was what you make of it. It could have been much bigger if these people wanted to make it bigger. But I see them as divide agents. who needs the FBI when you have all this going on? I don't even know
Mhm.
if there's like any need for a COINTELPRO program anymore. They used to send these poison pen letters between gang leaders who were trying to create truces and unity agreements back in the 60s to fight that common enemy. There's no need for that anymore. I mean, we have all of these wedge issues that can do that on its own for those who accept that kind of toxic politics.
Yeah, I think for people who are not aware, I've gone to anti-war rallies here in Boston. They're usually very small. I've streamed some of them and people are like, "Where is everybody?" And I'm like, "It's Boston. Like we tried." Like, but they're usually particularly small. I went to the Julian Assange protest in DC in October. That one, there was like 200 people there, and Misty told me, she said that's the largest turnout they've had usually for like those types of events. So I thought it was a success. I thought it was great. But I think that being in organizing spaces and being an activist, Max, I've seen this happen time and time again. It doesn't matter what the event is. It doesn't matter who the speakers are. I remember the same type of ordeal happened 2 years ago with the marches for Medicare for All. Same thing happened. Like it was heavily attacked. People were saying the speakers weren't right. There was one speaker, Dr. Joseph Jarvis. He's a conservative, but he agrees with Medicare for All. It was attacked because of that. There was a incident where someone got a hold of the graphic information and put a white nationalist on there as a speaker. The organizers did not invite that person. That was someone trying to sabotage the event, and they responded very quickly. And even then, there was still criticism. People were like, "Why is it in this city and not in that city?" And there was so many like smear merchants trying to tear the rally down. And I noticed over time, it's the same people, Max. It's the same people who attacked that one. They attacked the Julian Assange rally. I'm like, how can you attack the Julian Assange rally? And they're like, why are you talking about Julian Assange? Where are the Black people? And I'm like, there were several Black speakers at the Julian Assange rally, and I was one of them. But it's just like they just looked over all of us and just wanted to focus on certain individuals. Even with the issue with Scott Ritter, and I have to bring this up, Scott Ritter was one of the speakers at the Julian Assange rally in October. Nobody seemed to have a problem. Next thing I know, with this particular rally, everyone was like, no, Scott Ritter cannot speak. And I'm like, so now everybody has a problem with Scott Ritter, but they didn't in October? Make it make sense.
Yep. I can't make it make sense. I mean, this is what I've always dealt with ever since I was sort of adopted by the professional activist left, just because of my work on Palestine, I guess. I just noticed that there were so many divide agents within this movement that it's going to be difficult for it to actually mobilize anything on the scale of what we saw with the Iraq war protests. And what we saw on the 19th was a humongous achievement. And we see what we're up against. I just find it so amusing that so many people think they have the right to just swoop in and take over a rally and demand that they be front and center and that they be the leaders of a rally, or that they will hold the rally at gunpoint and declare that they're going to brand them racist or fascist or whatever and keep attacking and attacking until they get what they want. It's just like a classic manipulation, exploitation tactic. And that's what we saw from a lot of the people attacking this rally, when they could have just acted in good faith, brought their people out and had a good time like we did. And it would have been 3 times bigger. They have to plan some separate rally that's obviously in competition with this. It just looks so petty and juvenile. But again, I mean, this was clearly something that Rachel Maddow didn't want to see for a lot of reasons. It goes well beyond the war in Ukraine. She doesn't want to see that there are thousands of Americans who actually look with a skeptical eye on all of the psyops that have been projected through the flat screen TVs of liberal America via MSNBC and from her mouth. You could just see her seething with contempt at this rally because the people there didn't accept the COVID psyop. They don't accept what she's saying about Ukraine. They didn't accept Russiagate. They've managed to survive psychologically this war, this hybrid war that corporate media, which is simply a megaphone for the oligarchy and the national security state, have been waging on them. And she hates them for that. So this rally clearly was a threat two powerful interests. But as I said, it's also a threat to the professional sectarian left, which has attempted to control the what they call the anti-war movement for 2 decades now, and they see it as a threat to their control. So they have to attack it. It's all about ego, control, and narcissism. It's not about actually stopping the war.
So journalist Eric London, he came on here, and I want you to hear what he had to say. You know, I have to tell you, this conversation started out very well in the beginning. We were talking about DSA, and he talked about all the issues with DSA. And then he said he did want to talk about the article that they released at the World Socialist website about the rally, criticizing the rally. And he brought up the racial issues too. And everything was going great. And then he really got me the wrong way. So I just want to play this clip.
The socialist movement doesn't take the level at which workers currently are as the end all be all. Okay. Now you have a rally over the weekend. You invite people who are Nazis, not you personally inviting them, but there was a rally that was held. Chris Hedges, who had once presented himself as someone who
we have to stop there. There were no Nazis that were speakers at that rally. I was at the rally. There were no Nazis that were speakers at that rally. So you need to clarify.
I'm not clarifying. There was a substantial presence of far-right elements, including people at the well, okay, you want to talk about who? What about Jackson Hinkle? Who are the people who were calling the shots that he was referencing? This is
You're saying, wait a minute. I think you need to be very careful here, Eric. You are making a statement on this show that people are watching live, and you're saying that Jackson Hinkle is a Nazi?
Look, this was an event which was held explicitly with open arm. What I was just about to say was that Chris Hedges wrote an article talking about how Oath Keepers and Proud Boys would be welcome at this event. He said that. I think it was actually in a statement he made subsequent to the initial article. Now, what he said is actually very interesting because this gets to the heart of the issue that you're raising. Hedges said the following. He said, "We will not topple corporate power and the war machine alone. There has to be a left-right coalition which will include people whose opinions are not only unpalatable, but even repugnant." And then he says, or we will remain marginalized and ineffectual. And then he says the following. He says, "Because we urgently need as many voices as possible from a broad variety of perspectives to speak out so that we can be much more effective at pressuring Congress and the White House to move this conflict from the bloody battlefield to the negotiating table." Look, this conflict is not going to end because of pressure on Joe Biden. It's going to end if there's a movement in the working class based on socialist, anti-imperialist principles. And to the extent that there are those out there who do not realize that that's in their class interest, then it's the obligation of the socialist movement to fight for that and to explain that. And no, not to adapt to people like Jackson Hinkle who call for the mass deportation of immigrant workers. What a horrific betrayal of the interests of the international working class it is.
Look, I read that article.
He's somehow left anti-war. When
Listen,
you appeal to someone like that and call him anti-war, you legitimize the far right, and they will come next.
Listen, I read that article by Chris Hedges. I have many criticisms about Jackson Hinkle. This is not a secret, but I think it is a stretch. You have to be careful when you come onto this show and you explicitly call him a Nazi.
Do you think
This is not about. No. There's a difference between Chris Hedges' article and Chris. There's a difference between Chris Hedges' article and Chris Hedges saying, "I openly welcome certain people to this event," and you explicitly saying that Jackson Hinkle is a Nazi. I think you need to be careful with that.
How do you think it impacts the ability of the anti-war movement in the United States to explain that the Ukrainian government is filled with Banderaites who are Nazis? How do you think it helps the anti-war movement when then you associate with fascists like Jackson Hinkle? All right. So
listen, I have many criticisms, as I've stated before, even before the rally and after. I was not an organizer for this rally. There are certain speakers that I myself would have not invited. I just had that conversation earlier this morning on Rising. Okay, I was not an organizer for this, but I will say this. I think you have to be very careful when you make those kind of statements and you don't have any evidence to back that up, Eric. That's what I'm saying.
No evidence when someone is a supporter of Donald Trump and talks about purging liberalism and globalists. I mean, you're just defending them.
Okay, no, listen, Eric, wait a minute, Eric. I know several people, Eric, I know several, wait a minute now. I know several people that supported Donald Trump. Wait a minute. I know several people who voted for Obama twice and then turned around and voted for Donald Trump. Not everyone who supported Trump is a Nazi. Do not come on here with that rhetoric. Don't do it.
Listen to this. When we campaign in the working class, we talk to people.
Sure. Am I going to respond to this or?
Go ahead, Max.
I mean, I could hear him talk forever. That was Nathan J. Robinson crossed with Harry Potter, organizing the working class masses to rush to the barricades and storm the centers of power from a library in Ann Arbor, Michigan, or wherever he is. I mean, it's their World Socialist website is a joke. They're a joke. They're like 12 nerds talking about how they're going to lead a revolution, and that's just it's also kind of like a microcosm of the professional sectarian left. I wouldn't say anything if they didn't attack me. I wouldn't say anything about anyone unless they came directly for me. But if you're going to name me and if you're going to tell a lie about me, I'm going to tell the truth about you. And we went over their first attack on the rally on the gray zone, and linked in their attack on the rally was example of what they think the way forward is. And it was a link to a mass rally they held of youth and students and working people from around the world. And then you click on it and it's a webinar involving 12 people who are like, they have like, as I said, they have the combined charisma of a filing cabinet or maybe drying paint. Like they're not going to lead anyone. They are a laughing stock. And so their way forward is already going nowhere. Then they just lie. They just lie and lie and lie and lie. And they have no sense of humor. I mean, everybody, imagine if they got power, they would be so hated. No one likes people like that, humorless, and they're never going to get power anyway. But in their second article attacking the rally, they said Jimmy Dore bizarrely said that instead of giving billions of dollars to Nazis in Ukraine, the U.S. should use it to fund Nazis in America. And it's like, no, Jimmy was making an obvious joke that was hilarious about how Nazis in the U.S. can't buy eggs because all of their money is going to Ukrainian Nazis. He's making a joke, and they either deliberately mischaracterize the joke, or they are so devoid of joy and humor and the kinds of things that ordinary human beings who they claim to want to lead actually possess, that they can't understand this joke. But like, everyone sees them as a laughing stock. I barely feel compelled to address them, except that there is another component of the World Socialist website that needs to be understood, which is that they still want America to be under lockdown. They want everyone to be welded inside because COVID still exists. And that means that there will be no rallies. There will be no protests. No one will be able to do anything. They still attack me as a fascist because I talk about the costs of school closures, for example, on disadvantaged youth. I mean, the New York Times has a story. It's like a front page story up today about youth, a high school student who was unable to go fulfill his dream of playing college basketball and therefore lost a basketball scholarship just because his school closed for so long. So his life is destroyed. He was a healthy kid. He even went and got vaccinated or whatever. But the World Socialist website wants everyone to be like that forever, with their Socialist Equality Party or whatever it is. And you constantly hear that from this professional sectarian left. It's like just these are the cartoon version of everybody else who's attacking this rally, and they can never get out of their delusional silo. So I'm done with them. And it's not like I'm becoming a libertarian or something. I don't agree with them on the way forward either. But if they want to get permits, they want to pull permits and bring out as many people as they can and work with other people and not put any criteria on the other speakers and what they can say and what they believe on social issues or economic issues, then let's do it. And let's keep doing it, because this is just about one thing. It's about ending this war. And you could just tell, it's just so clear, like, that they do not care about ending the war first. They have another agenda, and they don't care about saving Ukrainian and Russian lives or stopping a nuclear war as much as they care about about boutique social issues or about their own agenda for leading some kind of evanescent, abstract socialist revolution in the United States, where they've demonstrated no capacity for organizing anyone. And like you mentioned, Jackie Lookman, who's, attacked me, not by name, but she attacked the left participants in the rally. She called them dime store leftists and latte leftists. And then she pretended like she didn't attack them. But she said in an interview that even if this rally did succeed in stopping the war and stopping nuclear war, those people won't organize with us against capitalism. It's like, wait, if we succeeded in stopping the war and we succeeded in saving humanity from nuclear war, you won't give us a little bit of credit? You won't say that this rally was worthwhile? I mean, no rally has stopped a war. It's about a bigger thing. But like, she actually said that on Jared Ball's show. So that is so revealing that the priority for them is not stopping a nuclear war, which she mocked people for that. The priority for them is not about stopping the war. It's about some whole other agenda that exists down the road.
But for me, the way organizing works is you organize with different people based on the issues. Like for Medicare for All, there are people I would organize with that to, have rallies for Medicare for All. For policing issues like George Floyd protests, there were people out there that marched with us then that didn't agree with me on Medicare for All, didn't agree with me on canceling student loan debt. They just agreed with me on that one issue. That's typically how organizing works. Like you organize with people around the issue. And it just seems like to me, like, based on the information that I've seen, more so on social media, this is why I need to not spend much time on Twitter, Max. But it just seems like it's some of it seems to be personal from what I've seen as well. And I just, it's really frustrating because this is exactly why the left doesn't win. We don't have any wins, Max. Because people, it's like, I can't do panels on this show anymore without someone saying, I don't want to be on there if so-and-so is going to be on there. That's why I haven't done panels in like a couple months, because everybody's like, I don't want to be seen with this person and that person. And you don't see people do this on the right. And meanwhile, we have no wins here, like on the left, like nothing is happening.
Yeah, I mean, people on the right do attack each other a lot, especially like in the extremist circles. They get all caught up in that personality stuff. But with the libertarians, I noticed they're much more open to coalitions, and that showed. And there have been coalitions in our lifetime between left and right that were very similar to the one that cohered around this rally. The NAACP and Phyllis Schlafly's Eagle Forum formed a coalition against the Patriot Act. Code Pink has worked with the Heritage Foundation against various war efforts. Like, for example, I'm pretty sure they worked together against the efforts to intervene in Syria in 2013. Code Pink has been involved in many left-right coalitions. And if you listen to, for example, the Libertarian Institute's anti-war radio or Scott Horton's interviews, he's always hosting people discussing police abuses, specifically of Black Americans. I mean, this is one of their causes, and he's involved in the Mises Caucus that was branded as racist. I don't agree with them on everything, but they're obviously an ally on police brutality. So how is a left that has so little influence in the United States as it is, whose influence was just dealt a death blow by Barack Obama, going to move forward without coalitions? And let's face it, a lot of the professional sectarian left is in a de facto coalition with liberal Democrats. They just don't want to totally admit it. They endorsed AOC. They created AOC. The DSA created AOC, and then she goes and votes for $40 billion to Ukraine. She abstains on a package of military aid to Israel, including funding the Iron Dome system, which is used to give Israel the complete ability to assault the Gaza Strip. She signed an anti-China bill with Ted Cruz. And what do they do against her? Do they strip her of membership? No, they do nothing. They endorsed all these candidates who have been supporting this war. And there's no one within Congress who's progressive, who is supported by self-styled socialists that we can talk to anymore about this war. Meanwhile, you have Matt Gaetz, who I just have no affinity with on domestic policy at all, who has just actually introduced a resolution to end the U.S. occupation of Syria. The U.S. is occupying 1/3 of Syrian land. It's in its northeast, stealing its oil, stealing its wheat, causing a famine in Syria at a time of when there's an earthquake, after an earthquake, when aid can't get in. And that's after Matt Gaetz introduced the Ukraine Fatigue Act to defund this Ukraine war. Matt Gaetz's speeches opposing Kevin McCarthy's speakership included tips of the hat to the anti-war left, and he called for a coalition against these wars. So are we to refuse that olive branch from a member of Congress simply because we don't like how he feels about other social issues? I think that'd be pretty stupid if our top issue is ending this war. And I guess I'm in the minority within like the left.
I think you brought up some interesting points, because I think a big part of the problem is, and we've talked about this on RBM multiple times before, I think part of the problem is, number one, there's the social issues, and then there's like the economic issues or the foreign policy issues and things like that. And I think oftentimes we may not all agree on all of those things at once, right? And I think part of the problem is a lot of us came out of that Bernie Sanders like movement, and we found policies that we did agree on. We united over that. So Bernie kind of brought people together that honestly, I think we may not have never been together, to be honest, if it weren't for those policies. But then it seems like what happened is after that campaign collapsed in 2020, people kind of didn't know where to go. And then there's other issues that have been brought up in reference to the social issues, and different groups feel like they're not being represented, or their issues are not put to the top of the list. And I understand those things too. I think, is there any way that there can be some type of balance? Do you think? Is there a way, and from your experience, is there a way to focus on both or appreciate both and still maintain like this type of left community, so to speak? Or do you feel like it's just completely divided?
I'm not I'm not running around posing as an organizer, but what we were able to do with this rally was get people out with our journalism and with our live streams, and just with the community we've created online. We were able to send people out. That's what I'll continue to do, but I'm not going to tell people, I'm not going to provide people with the strategy points. It's pretty obvious if you look at what Bernie's doing in the Senate, that would have been similar to what he would have done in the White House, except with much, much greater obstructions. And the worst parts would have been magnified by a factor of 1,000. The worst parts being having foreign policy advisors like Matt Duss, who are completely in step with the national security state. I mean, he's moved on to a State Department funded think tank, or some think tank funded by billionaires, the Carnegie Endowment. But he set the agenda for Bernie on Ukraine and Russia and all the major foreign policy issues. And then Bernie would have been completely obstructed on economic issues. And he was being sabotaged from the inside by these sectarian and professional elements who really weren't interested in kind of a class-based agenda. So it's just, it's depressing to look at the reality, but at the same time, it is possible, if we focus on issues, that we can educate people, raise their consciousness, and mobilize them. And that should influence politics to the extent that electoral politics is worth anything in this country. I mean, I want to look at the positive side of this rally. We were able to clearly raise people's consciousnness and get them out in the streets. And that's something that I think the Bernie movement, the movement behind him, which I fully supported in the 2016 campaign, that was a product of the same kind of organizing efforts and just spontaneous online media. So where can we take it? Where can we take it if there's no one in Congress on the left willing to do anything? Well, for now, we have to shame them in public and get them to actually answer questions. I think what we saw with, the interruption of Hakeem Jeffries by, what's his name? Jose. He, shout out Jose. He was just asking about the Nord Stream pipeline bombing. Like, let's focus on, I'm going to focus on what I can do. I can ask hard questions of people in power. I was actually amazed at how many people were able to come out to this rally, but that's not never something I thought I can do, but I'm going to continue to focus on raising people's consciousness and holding power to account as a journalist, activist journalist.
Would you be interested in if
Jose
given the
Vega.
huh?
I'm having to access so many names. So I Jose Vega. Just wanted to say.
If given the invitation, would you be interested in having this discussion? And it doesn't have to be on stream, even like off camera with Jackie. Both of you guys just kind of hashing this out.
She already refused. Other people were saying debate him, and she said she would not do it. But I personally know her, and like 2 days before she introduced this inflammatory attack, this insulting attack, I saw her, and she was very nice to me and cordial and shook my hand. So whatever, if you're going to be fake like that, then and then you're not going to debate. That's pretty revealing. But if you're going to come at me, and obviously come at me without saying my name, people have been doing that for years in the professional sectarian left. They did that over COVID on Breakthrough Media, just attacking me without saying my name. I'm eventually going to come for you. And if you debate me, it's not going to go very well for you, because I don't dive into an issue without actually knowing what I'm talking about. I don't just repeat the stuff, the stuff that I hear from people around me because I'm in the left or I'm in the movement. I actually think about issues, and I'm able to articulate my points. And I think, that's why they are so afraid to name me. But I know what's going on. And I did hear from Jamu Baraka that he wants to have a respectful conversation. And I told him I was open to that, either publicly or privately. I didn't see him really attacking me directly. So if he wants to do that, then yeah, that's fine. But they attacked first. So it's up to them to invite me to have that conversation. If they want to keep denigrating me or people who participated in that rally, like, fine. It's not like it doesn't affect me when it's something that I've been dealing with for years and years and years.
I think it's kind of sad to see everybody, like, everyone just fighting with each other. But good on Ajamu if he's willing to have that discussion with you. I think that's great. And like I said, like, I don't feel like these things need to be necessarily on a live stream. It's just, I think one thing I will say, I think some of this comes from, I saw a stream that Black Power Media did the other day. And it seems like to me, I think some of it comes from a place where I think for some of those who are Black leftists, like in the media space, there is sometimes the concern that it seems like we're an afterthought. So I think that's kind of where some of it comes from. And I think part of the problem is because there aren't as many, there just aren't as many of us like in it. But I think that sometimes it can make people feel like they're kind of overlooked, just giving you, that perspective.
Well, I didn't plan the rally. If I planned it, actually I did some comedy with Jimmy Dore the night before. And I said, like, if I looked at the speaker list, it looks like some guy who's new to town named Connor, who like invited the 2 Black people he knows at his office, and then like a bunch of randos from his dodgeball league. Like, it would have been, the rally would have looked a lot different if I had planned it. And a lot of the people that are mad at it probably would have been included, but it wasn't for me to say who was involved, and all these attacks just came out of nowhere, and they started to, involve me. So, and I just see, when I see that kind of attitude, you should not try to suppress turnout to an anti-war rally. And that's what they were doing. So it offended me. But the main thing was that, you shouldn't mock people for actually raising the alarm about the prospect of nuclear war.
Yeah. No, I
So
totally
mean,
hear you.
I'm always like getting these kinds of attacks, and everyone's like, "Oh, just let it go, let it go." And then when I respond, then people are like, "How dare you, you monster!" And they all play the victim and everything. I mean, come on. If you can't take it, don't dish it out.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. Like people, some of these things are sus to me. Like people attack me too, and I was like, I'm not an organizer. I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. People had like some people DM'd me and said, "Don't go, don't do it. This is going to
Yeah.
be an unsafe space for you." And I was like, "It's outside. I think I'll be all right." I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's I talked about on Aaron Mate, my colleague at the Gray Zone, interviewed me about the drama around the rally on Jimmy Dore. He was filling in, and I have a friend who actually was on the call that, well, I can't say it's a friend or not a friend, but I have a source who was on a call that Code Pink had with Medea Benjamin, where they basically bullied her into not participating in this rally, which she very much wanted to participate in. You're talking about like the anti-war legend in the United States. Any major interruption in Congress or the think tanks in DC of a warmonger, someone organizing a coup in Latin America, it was Medea Benjamin leading it. And they weren't willing to trust her judgment. These millennial staffers who don't have anywhere near the stripes she has. And they said that we don't feel safe. One of them said, "I don't feel safe as a Muslim participating in this rally." Another one said, like, "I don't feel safe, as a member of this group or that group." And like, none of that bore out with the rhetoric on stage or what you saw at the rally. And then it was just so tragic to be backstage with Medea and see her not be able to deliver a message to a crowd that she helped mobilize. So I just don't see how any of this leads anywhere positive. It's just a bunch of dead weight on what could be a much more strong push to end this war. Again, I'm not trying to build I'm not talking about building some broader leftist movement. I'm talking about ending the war. That's my main concern. That's why I was interested in participating in this rally. I wasn't interested in, forging some broader agenda with libertarians.
Yeah, I think that it was great that Medea still, showed up to show support. So I was glad to see that she still came. But I did find it kind of strange that Anne Wright was a speaker and she's a part of Code Pink. So I didn't understand why it was okay for Anne to speak, but not for Medea.
It might have been because Medea is on the board of Code Pink, but my understanding was she wanted to continue working with these people who've been hired at Code Pink, so she had to kind of go along with what they wanted to do, which was to tell her where she can and can't speak. And Code Pink actually held a sister rally with this rally in San Francisco, and the national Code Pink refused to support Code Pink's own rally in San Francisco. I mean, you can just, like I said, it's all the postmodern identity politics. You just inject that in, bring it onto campus, get it in people's heads, raise up like a generation who believes in all that on social media, and just let it go. And I mean, the FBI can just retire. There's not going to be an anti-war movement as long as that stuff is around. If there is, it's going to just be what we've seen for the last 15 years, something really small. And, someone like Obama comes along and it just disappears for a while.
Do you think that if we continue to have it, at least like even the smaller ones, if we continue having these rallies, because that's one of the things that people were asking, like, okay, where do we go from here? What's the next step? If we continue having these rallies, even if they're smaller ones, then maybe that will motivate people more and maybe bring more noise to it.
I think it all depends on what happens around Ukraine. This was definitely a positive start. What we're discussing is depressing. It's a huge weight and obstruction to the possibility of doing more. And I feel a strong sense that the opposition to this kind of coalition style rally is going to grow within the sect that I identified. But anything can happen around Ukraine. I mean, we've seen high-level NATO officials call for boots on the ground, NATO boots on the ground. We've seen calls from retired generals who are still have cachet within military leadership for the U.S. to help Ukraine retake Crimea, which would be a disaster. I think that would be sort of the red line that could lead to a nuclear confrontation. So anything could happen. And we could also see the war just simply fizzle out, possibly because of new leadership in the United States after 2024. So we don't know what's going to happen, but it's really good to have people on standby. There was a lot of networking that took place around this rally.
Yep.
And so I think, and obviously Maddow was, if Maddow's threatened, that means it broke through. So
yeah.
I think there will be more in the summer. Just basically the whispers I'm hearing from some of the organizers, they might want to do something when the weather's warmer, but we'll have to see what the situation on the ground is like.
Yeah. Do you think that because one of the things I thought that was really cool was like the night before, for those who don't know, the night before Jimmy had a show. So there were a couple of us that were at that show for Jimmy. It was just really cool to see like everybody in one room, because I don't, usually travel to these things, but it was nice to see everybody in one room. Like for me, like to see Garland Nixon, to see Tara Reid, to see like you, all these different people. And like, we may not always agree on everything, but I thought it was kind of cool for everybody to come together. Do you think that there could be more things like that? Because I feel like that used to happen more like on the left. And I feel like kind of after Forced to Vote, I feel like some of those things kind of fell apart.
Well, that was my favorite part about it, was just getting to see everyone in person and having everyone be there. And I think like for those of us who are doing this kind of work, whether as journalists or you're a live streamer, whatever media you're doing, it can be very isolating. It's definitely socially isolating because these are issues we can't talk about with the average middle class urban person. Because of the tidal wave of propaganda they're subjected to. But we're also just, it's encouraging, and it was just a positive vibe to be around everyone. So I think for many of the people who are activists or playing prominent roles in mobilizing people, it was kind of like, it filled us with energy, and that was another reason why I think it was a positive event.
I agree. Max, are you going to do more stand-up?
I mean, it's really, it all started when I got asked to do some comments at some talk at something Randy did called Stand-Ups for Assange, like a year ago or more. And, I really wanted to mess with the audience on COVID. So I did a bunch of COVID jokes and like impersonated Fauci, and it was kind of satisfying. But Jimmy liked it. And then he brought me on to open for him at a club in Studio City, and it went really well. I went for 15 minutes. Then we did some shows at Zany's in Chicago, which is like a real comedy club. Yep. And then we did this one, and it went really well. And the common thread here in all of it is that the crowd consists of people like us. So they get all the inside references they're on our side. So do I want to have like a career in stand up or see that as like a possibility? No. I mean, if I went and did like a normal comedy club, I would either get physically assaulted and like dragged out, by, people who have Ukraine flags on their houses, or they would just like look at me and not know what the hell I was talking about, like with all the inside references. So I'll continue to like open for Jimmy wherever I can and speak to friendly audiences, but maybe there's a chance of doing some gray zone events, and we bring like our team together and we'll do like a panel and some comedy and engage with the audience. But no, I don't really see it as like a career move. I don't even know how I got this far with this, except
you're pretty funny.
Mainstream. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
You're pretty funny.
I just know the audience,
Yeah. One more question for you. I had a poll. Trump went to East Palestine, Ohio, and he was
Yeah.
giving out food donations and apparently his own brand of water. There's a whole thing that goes with that. But do you think that Donald Trump coming to East Palestine, Ohio before Biden, I actually don't know if Biden is even going to go. Do you think that will hurt Biden's reelection chances?
Well, obviously the Biden White House made a decision to shaft Ohio. They just decided they're going to lose Ohio.
Yeah.
They must have they must already have, well, I don't even know if Biden's going to run, but it's the Democrats, and they must have already mapped it out and decided Ohio is not winnable. If they were to mistreat Ohio like this, I mean, he didn't have to go to Kiev, or Kyiv as we have to call it now. He didn't have to do that, but it was obviously more important to Biden. It's part of his legacy. It's, Ukraine has been better to his family than Ohio has, even though Ohio's next door to where Biden's supposedly from, in Scranton. East Palestine is just, it's like right between Youngstown, Ohio, and Pittsburgh. So that's supposed to be kind of Biden country. That's why Obama chose Biden, by the way, as VP, so he could win some of those Rust Belt whites. But you can see Biden's going another way. And then they sent Buttigieg, which is just a disaster. I mean, like, it's almost as bad as it's just the worst possible. I think they're kind of sacrificing him. The Democrats are like, we don't want this guy running for president. We're just going to send him to the wolves there.
I think
but they
so
put
too.
Ukraine first before Ohio. I made some joke on Twitter that the DNC is moving Ukraine up in the primary schedule ahead of Ohio for 2024.
Oh my God.
And it's sad, Trump was all about deregulating the railroad industry, and now he's like gets to swoop in, and he's the hero of all those people.
Yep. Thoughts on Marianne Williamson's announcement? She's making an announcement March 4th, and I believe it's about primary Joe Biden, probably. Thoughts on that?
Well, it's just like the best that the remnants of the Bernie movement can come up with. And it's someone who knows nothing about foreign policy and actually got up at one of these stand up for Assange events that I mentioned and lectured the crowd on their opposition to funding the proxy war in Ukraine. It's sad. I mean, it's why, it would be great to have an independent candidate, someone like Jimmy Dore running, but I mean, I can understand why he wouldn't want to run given just the intensity of the attacks. They would just attempt to completely destroy him as a person. So she's already run. She did well on the debate stage. She's not that much of a threat to the establishment. And that's all like the Bernie remnants have to go off of. And I hope something else takes place. I've heard some rumors about some other people who might run, but I don't want to, who might actually really shake things up, but I don't want to be wrong.
You don't want to. Okay. Yeah. Well, Max, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on to create more drama. I hope to see you again.
All righty. Thanks.
All right.
All right, guys, I'm going to go to some of the comments here, and then we're going to go to the next news story, which is about, it's about Trump. Yes, that one's about Trump. Okay, we'll go to that one next. But let me go to some of the comments first. Great conversation there with Max. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please go ahead and hit that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algorithm. And then I'm going to go ahead to the comments here. Brandy, my two kids that are half Hispanic have had different experiences based on the difference of their skin tone. Yeah, I've heard that before too. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Max, thank you for the super chat, Charles. Max and Sabby, I am disappointed in Lukeman and Ball for chasing clout over this, but please ignore the haters. I hope this is the last of this drama. Thank you for that, Charles. Shout out to Black in the Empire. Black in the Empire was there at the rally. What's up? Says hello, everybody. Thank you for the super chat, Daniel. Besides local politics, what's a good outlet for money, energy? Dollar energy? I'm sorry. Besides local politics, what's a good outlet for... I'll come back to that one, Daniel, if you want to clarify in the chat. And thank you for the super chat. Landrew, how can people not be against nuclear war? Yeah, that's a good question. Good question. I'll take the tip on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip, Stargazer on Rockfin. It says Sabby Sabs received a tip. And thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Busted. You just got caught. Sawant shilling for the Democratic Party. Good work, Sab. I swear you should have told him when that fool said Sawant is on the take. I was waiting for that. Is utterly false and complete fiction. Neera Tandon, I think, is Brahmin. Okay, MLK studied Gandhi. Ironically, if you read his early writings, it was very revealing how racist Gandhi was against Black people. Interesting. I did not know about that. And thank you for this tip, Laura. Love Max Blumenthal. Love Anya too. Great guess. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for this one, Roger. NYPD has a similar device that's most commonly used to blast invisible rays into your car to look for bombs that they take out during the US Open without even telling you. Oh, I couldn't see that top part. Sorry. Without even telling you that it's a scanner. I only knew because I asked, and the pig got an attitude with me for asking. Not letting public know is a violation of 4A rights. I don't know what long-term health effects of those rays are. I avoid found alt way in. All righty. Well, thank you for that, Roger. Let's get to this story here about Donald Trump. I do want to make sure. Yeah. Donald Trump went to East Palestine, Ohio. Now, again, for those of you who are not aware, Joe Biden has not been to East Palestine, Ohio yet. Pete Buttigieg just got there, from what I can tell. And he doesn't want to answer questions about why it took him so long to get there in the first place. So we know that people in East Palestine, Ohio, are dealing with this issue with the train derailment and the chemicals being released in their town. So right now they're saying that the water is not safe for them. And they're saying that also the air apparently is not that safe for them as well. Now, Donald Trump has gone there. Aaron Brockovich is there right now. Everybody seems to go except for Joe Biden. And there's a poll that's attached to the chat. Make sure that you go ahead and answer that poll. I'll reveal the results of the poll after this, because I want you to see what happened there. Now, remember, obviously, Trump is running for president again. So this could be an actual smart move by him.
Thank you, sir. Honor to meet you, sir. Mr. Trump, what do you make it about Biden not showing up? You showing up before he did.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Hey, Trump, take a picture of my phone. Picture? There he is. He's Trump, the real president. Yeah, Trump. Thank you, Trump.
You hear what they're saying? Thank you so much for coming. See, the president of the United States should be there right now. That's the thing that kills me. And remember, this is the Rust Belt. This is the Rust Belt that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. So here we go. I mean, it's just, I really do think the Democratic Party is pretty much given up on Ohio. And I think that's why they're not even entertaining this the way that they should.
Thank you for not forgetting about us. Thank you, Don Jr. too.
My daughter was like
Mr. Trump, I love you.
I love you, baby. Okay, thank you so much.
You hear that?
Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump.
Yeah, so they definitely seem pretty excited to see him there. I think they're excited to see anyone to just give them some type of acknowledgement that, like, hey, we realize what happened to you. You know, this is a disaster. I understand what you're dealing with here. And it just seems like, again, like for the most part, the Democrats like just don't even really care. Now, Misty, Comrade Misty, we like to call her, she pointed something out here. I think this is fair to say. She said, don't get it twisted. Dude doesn't give one single F, I got to be careful with the profanity on here now, about these people and is simply using them to score political points. Hugely embarrassing that Biden handed him this win. So this video here, this is Donald Trump, and this is the mayor of East Palestine, Ohio. Now, he's been very vocal about the fact that the people in the community have pretty much been, he feels they've been neglected by the federal government. And here comes Trump here to actually figure out what's going on, I guess. Isn't it a shame that Joe Biden hasn't met with this man yet? Is it really embarrassing? Really embarrassing. That's a good question, Joy. Are they concerned about, I don't know. No, they probably just want to fundraise as usual.
Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. How was your ride? Okay.
So he's there.
Nice ride, right? Okay, then,
to meet with the mayor. And I bring this up because, again, I've seen the mayor on multiple shows. He's also been on mainstream media saying he feels like the president and Pete Buttigieg just basically don't care. Now, they also delivered goods there as well. Now, someone told me that this was actually Trump's own brand of water. That was interesting. But it's not like he just showed up again. It's one thing to go there. It's another thing to go there and to actually bring goods. Now, people are saying that he paid for this. I'm not 100% sure about that. But this is from Benny Johnson. He is conservative. Just keep that in mind. Tens of thousands of pounds of goods, food, water being delivered to the people of East Palestine, Ohio right now before Trump's visit. Trump paid for all of it. Number of goods delivered from the Biden administration, 0. So you can see here, they're handing out water. It's a lot of water. Yeah, so they're handing out goods there to people. Basically, this is like what Rome does for Tour for the Poor. When Rome travels, like this would be, Rome has done this. He's donated this amount of water to people in Jackson, Mississippi a couple of months ago, actually. So why am I bringing this to your attention? Because there's another clip I'm about to show you in just a second about Donald Trump. And I tried to warn people about this. Now, yes, Donald Trump is there right now, but let's remember it was Donald Trump who actually rolled back the regulations on the trains in the first place. He said, I am continuing to get rid of costly and unnecessary regulations. Much work left to do, but effect will be great. Business and jobs will grow. That was August 3rd, 2017. And that is from the Fortune article where it says Trump rolls back train braking rule meant to keep oil tankers from exploding near communities. So I just want to remind everyone, he was the one that rolled it back. Now, I told you guys that the fact that the Biden administration has not really been helping the American people the way that they should, and the fact that there are certain people that are part of the Republican Party that have, in a weird sense, kind of branded themselves as caring about the working class. The way that you see the Freedom Caucus fight tooth and nail to prevent Kevin McCarthy from being speaker until they get the concessions that they want. They have been using tactics that the left was supposed to use. And so we see the squad members not using these tactics, but we do see Republican politicians in DC taking the strategies that were supposed to be done by the left and using them for their own party to get what they want. And what did I warn you about that? I told you that that is giving some people the impression that the Republicans are the ones that are actually for the working class. And I'm telling you this because there is a video from Donald Trump, and in this statement, he is calling out certain entities that you actually would expect Bernie Sanders to call out. If he runs on this, he could possibly win. Listen to this message.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons.
Let's start over because there we go. This is something that Bernie Sanders should be saying, but he's not.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon.
I don't know what happened there. I don't know why I did that.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists in the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex.
That sounds like something you would have heard Bernie Sanders say a couple years ago. The Pentagon, the deep state, the military industrial complex. That sounds like something that politicians on the left should actually say right now. They let Donald Trump take the same message that's supposed to be coming from the left and use it for himself. And I don't know why this video is so dark. It's just like that, but let's go on.
One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world, and now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it, and I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades. And that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward.
To stop the lobbyists and the defense contractors. This is something that Bernie Sanders won't even say right now. He won't say it right now because the president that's in the White House is a Democrat. Now, should we believe Trump? No. But the thing is this. Some people will. And it could be enough people. If he runs like this is a very different rhetoric than what he had when he ran in 2016. There's no name calling. This is very different. Let's let him finish here.
Conflict only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Take a look at the globalist warmonger donors backing our opponents. That's because they're candidates of war. I am the president who delivers peace, and it's peace through strength. There was a reason we had no conflict. There was a reason we didn't get into wars, because other countries respected us. I entirely built, all right from the beginning, rebuilt our military. It's a big reason for that. They didn't want to mess around with the United States, and now they're laughing at us. We could end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours with the right leadership. At the end of my next 4 years, the warmongers and frauds and failures in the senior ranks of our government will all be gone, and we will have a new group of competent national security officials who believe in defending America's vital interests above all else. Thank you very much.
We should be calling out the warmongers. That's what's messed up about that speech. Is like that really should have been coming from politicians that are on the so-called left. Like that should be coming from members of the squad. That should be coming from Bernie Sanders. Instead, they're too busy trying to kiss up to Joe Biden. But a fan said, good that Trump went, but he did not go to Flint. Yeah. I mean, it's almost like Joe Biden is kind of just handing this to him. That's what it kind of feels like. Remember, the DNC still would have rather had Trump win again than have Bernie Sanders win in 2020. Let's all remember that. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Daniel. A good thing to put our money and energy in. I always tell people to put like money in towards mutual aid organizations. If you go to mutualaidhub.org, they'll show you if there's mutual aid groups in your area. There's a lot of them on that map. So I was kind of surprised how many were around me that I just didn't know about. But I always tell people mutual aid. I think that helps. Thank you so much for the super chat, M. Smith. That's the problem. No one has any shame anymore. Thank you, Cool Blue. Since 1992, the highest number of top 10 populous states carried by a presidential winner was 8. 1996, Clinton, and 2008, Obama. For Democrats nowadays, they will see Republicans hold Florida and Ohio. So Democrats and Biden dismissed them. That's exactly what I was thinking. Like they don't care now. Salma, why is Bernie Sanders so supportive of the Biden administration? It is pathetic. Bernie got paid. It's true. Bernie got paid. Bernie knew if he didn't go along with them, Bernie probably wouldn't still have his seat right now. Thank you, EMK. Until we regulate the criminals who have taken over our regulatory agencies, there will be no change. Keep punching up, Sabby. Thank you so much, EMK. Thank you, Anthony. Jamie Raskin's dad wrote Democracy versus the National Security State in 1976. Apple falling far from the tree. Yeah, I know. Like some of the kids that like their parents were really well versed about how the deep state works. It's like the kids didn't follow in those footsteps, so to speak. JB, Trump sounds like he listens to left indie media right now. Thank you, David. But Trump didn't attend the Rage Against the War rally. No, he did not. Delthea, Trump could win with his rhetoric. More importantly, DeSantis could win with this rhetoric. And that's scary, right? JB says the squad could have showed up in East Palestine too. Obama could have went. That's true. That is true. Roger Meadows, thank you for the super chat. Put your money into supporting ballot initiatives. That's another place where you can put your money. Daniel, thank you so much for that. We are moving on to our next story. Oh, the poll. Eric, let me know when you got the poll, okay? Thanks for the super sticker some days. Thank you, some days. All right. Hakeem Jeffries. You know, we got to give Jose props. Like, again, him and his group, they really have been hitting the ground pretty hardcore. He's done multiple videos where he has confronted politicians, particularly those that represent his district and New York State. He has confronted AOC. He's confronted Jamal Bowman. He also I think he confronted Mike Pompeo too at one point. He's confronted multiple politicians. And now he has confronted Hakeem Jeffries, who I think is one of the most arrogant, corrupt corporate politicians that we have in DC right now. And I think he's on his way. Okay, Eric. When we show it at the end, I'll show it at the end. I think he's on his way to becoming something even bigger if he continues to play the DNC's game, which is what he has been doing. So Jose confronted Hakeem Jeffries in reference to the Nord Stream pipeline. Let's hear what Jose had to say.
The UN Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke to it. He is a former member of the CIA, and he testified in support of Seymour Hersh's article on the United States bombing Nord Stream pipeline. If it is proven that the United States bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as has been asserted by Seymour Hersh and his article, will you call for the United States to acknowledge and admit that that was an act of war against Germany and Russia? And I'm asking this because this may be the only way to prevent the rest of us from being killed in a thermonuclear war. And I don't want to be fried. Don't you think the media should be reporting on whether or not this is true? And don't you think you should be inquiring into whether or not this is true?
Well, thank you for the question.
So Jose is referring to the article that was written by Seymour Hersh, where he mentioned that it was the United States that actually blew up the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. The White House has issued a statement, of course, saying that that is utterly false and complete fiction. That is exactly what they said in the statement. But Seymour Hersh there is a award-winning journalist. This is not someone who just came about yesterday. Like, he has reported on the Vietnam War. He's reported on Richard Nixon. He's been around for a long time. So let's go back into this and hear Hakeem Jeffries' response.
One, I've got no information to suggest that the United States was involved in bombing the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because you weren't briefed on it.
Sir, you got your chance to ask a question.
So you give me an opportunity to respond.
You weren't given information because he explicitly says you weren't briefed on it. Shouldn't you inquire?
So here's what I'll say about, I think, President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to the Ukraine and Russia.
We committed an act of war. What are you doing to respond to that? We have to hold Biden accountable. So listen, you're from Brooklyn, right? You know when to call bullshit when you see it. So do I. This is bullshit right now. And I see what's happening right now. That does not silence me. So, you can hear me right now.
So what has happened is they pulled the microphone away. That's why he's walking over. So that's why he said that doesn't silence me. He's still going to talk.
I want you to say something about the bombing, because we're all going to die from a nuclear war right now unless you stop it and you at least put and inquire into whether or not it's true. This war in Ukraine is going to leave us all dead. So what are you going to do? Because you need to inquire. I'm a New Yorker too.
Here's what I'll say.
Say it.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainian people.
That's fucking bullshit. Do not do that. You will end us all dead.
This war.
Do you see? Hakeem Jeffries does not care. He doesn't care. I told you he's one of the most arrogant, doesn't care at all. He said, we will continue to stand with the Ukrainian people. None of them really want to answer this question about this pipeline. This isn't the first politician that's been asked about this question. They don't really want to ask. First, they say they don't really know about it. Then they're like, oh, yeah, I know. I heard about that. No, it's not true. They don't want to talk about that.
Against
we need peace. We need talks.
Because
why are you sabotaging talks? Do not put your hands on me. We need peace talks. I am not going to take this. We need peace talks.
It's a
You
battle
are leaving.
between
Listen.
democracy
Did you even read the
and
allegations?
autocracy. It's
Do you see how complacent the audience members are? Notice how they're just sitting there, very calm, very propagandized. A lot of the American people are. They have no idea what's going on. Most of them probably have no idea what article Jose is referring to because most of them don't read independent media, right? So they're totally lost. And this is what I want people to understand. The majority of American people, they are lost. They're lost when it comes to foreign policy. They're lost when it comes to economic issues. They're lost when it comes to diplomacy. They're lost when it comes to domestic policy and how our government actually functions and how it works. The majority are lost. And so they just look at someone like Jose and they're like, why is this guy being this way? Why is he interrupting Hakeem? It's a sad state of affairs.
a battle between
How
truth
about
and
accountability?
propaganda,
Not airheadedness.
and it's a battle between
Okay? How about
tyranny and
bridges,
freedom,
not bombs?
and democracy,
Okay? How about
truth, and
conversations,
freedom will
not
prevail, and
cremation?
the United States is going to help make sure
Diplomacy,
that happens.
not destruction. How about that?
I want to ask you to join me
You
for a round of
goddamn
applause
airhead,
for
you're gonna
Congressman
kill us all.
Hakeem Jeffries.
I don't want to die in a goddamn nuclear war, and
We
nobody
certainly appreciate freedom
does.
of
The UN Security
If you notice there at the end, Hakeem Jeffries was smiling. And people wonder how someone like him can get reelected because number one, he has a lot of money. He gets a lot of money from super PACs. He heavily supports the state of Israel. He was another one. He was handpicked. He was handpicked. Now, it wasn't just Jose, because there was another person that was there with Jose. And see, this is one of the people that they wouldn't allow to talk. It says, Gajan girl. Tonight, I and a few others attended an event featuring Representative Jeffries. As part of the Q&A, he allowed for 3 questions. The first question was a simple one. Jeffries did not like the second. Mine was the third. And so Lucy, who you guys know is Blue Moon Red Wine, she was one of the people that confronted AOC. She shared this. So if you'll notice, you look at the video, there's a mic stand here, but notice how she doesn't have a microphone. So listen to this.
Yeah, we really could use a mic. I want to hear your question. I have a mask because I have asthma and I don't want to be taking it off. There's a pandemic. I need the mic.
Okay. It looks like it's not going to work out to take your question.
No,
So we'll try to address
no.
it. But
No,
let me ask
no,
you
I should be able to speak.
I'm going to ask the final question up here.
She wants
No,
to speak. Why are you afraid for her to speak?
Why you don't have a microphone? But
That's all I
because
need
the
is a
mic
mic.
can actually-
So they don't want to let her speak because they said she doesn't have a microphone and she has on a mask. And the reason why she has on the mask is because she has asthma. She explains this later on in the tweet, but they're basically telling her that she can't speak because she doesn't have a microphone, but they took the microphone. So this is on purpose.
Why are you afraid for her to ask a question?
As a last question.
Are you a student?
I'm a graduate of CUNY, John Jay.
Are you a student?
She's a graduate of CUNY.
Yes.
So last question.
Last question. Okay.
Chelsea,
Last
in
question.
your-
No, sir! She wants to speak!
The minority party to the majority party now.
Last question. As a lifelong Jewish resident of New York City, I have a question.
The question was about what will
At
it take
AIPAC, you
for
once
us to
commented
go from the
in New York
minority
City,
party. Well, I think
we consider Jerusalem the
it's
sixth
important to
borough.
make the point
Israeli citizens
that
have universal.
See, notice how he's talking over her. So he's not letting her speak. Let me fast forward a little bit here because you can see what happens when they come over. Luckily, she did write it down. So I'm going to show you guys what she was trying to say. Twitter videos always do this. Why do Twitter videos do this, man? Let me come out. Go ahead. And pause. I really do hate that Twitter videos do this, you guys. Let me try to refresh it. Eric, can you try to refresh it and see if it does it? Because yeah, for some reason, videos on Twitter is like sometimes when I stop them and I try to go back, like it does stuff like that. It'll just give me the swirls. Okay. Let me try it now.
I could use a mic. I want to hear your question. I have a mask because I have asthma and I don't want to be
In the midterm election, we were expecting to lose 40, 50, or 60 seats.
So, see?
The last time that we lost
This
in
is
the
not
midterm
democracy.
election,
Jeffries, you gave $3 billion to Israel. Get my president. Brooklyn. Fellow Brooklyn, you're not here. Let her give him a
You're welcome to come to any town hall meeting that I have. I have regularly in Brooklyn. You can come to Stuyvesant. You can come to Canarsie. You can come to Western Dakota Island. You can come to Brownsville, East New York. But don't disrespect this puny town hall meeting right now.
Okay, so let's go on here because I do want to show you what she was trying to say. And it says here, this is the question that she was not allowed to ask. I don't know why. Eric, is there a way to make this larger to increase the thanks? All right. Jeffries proceeded to talk over me and avoided my question below. As a New York woman and a member, of the Jewish community speaking for millions impacted by his policies, I would have hoped he would afford me in the concept of democracy basic respect, but he failed to do so. And this is what he was trying. I don't know what that is.
What do you make it about Biden not showing up? You showing up before he did.
Hold on one second. I'm not sure why there's another video playing. Eric, can you?
The real president.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. That shouldn't be playing. Thanks. Okay. Going back. So this is what she was trying to say. As a longtime Jewish resident of New York City, I have a question. At AIPAC, you once commented in New York City, we consider Jerusalem the sixth borough. She's not exaggerating. He did say that. Israeli citizens have universal health care coverage. We in the U.S. don't. 68,000 plus die every year from a lack of Medicare for all. We suffer from homelessness and crumbling infrastructure. You can see that right outside from where we are now, with much of it impacting women and people of color. Your job as New York representative is to help New Yorkers and U.S. citizens. Organizations such as Amnesty International have documented Israel's right-wing apartheid and ethnic cleansing policies. Jerusalem isn't in the U.S. East Palestine, Ohio, which is being poisoned right now due to Trump and Biden's neglect, is. I want to know if you're willing to condemn Israel's human rights violations and call for the $3.8 billion the U.S. gives them every year to be repurposed for U.S. citizens right here. Excellent question. And I really wish she would have had the opportunity to answer that, to ask that question. So I thought that would have been great if everybody else could have heard what she was trying to say. But again, notice her microphone was removed. That's all on purpose. Now, she went on to say, I want to go ahead and show here. She was sharing this with other people. I think she tagged me somewhere, and that's how I saw this. Yeah, I was tagged right there. Let me come back out. And then there's other people that responded too. But I felt bad for her. I felt bad for her because she didn't get the opportunity to get that out. Now, Lucy, Blue Moon, Lucy captured a lot of this as well. So there's the letter there. Let me see if she gave the other one. I want to make sure I got the last from Jose's speech as well. Yeah, that was the part 2. Yeah, this is the other one. I thought there was another one. Let me go ahead and share this one as well. So this is her again.
There's a pandemic. I need the mic.
Okay. It looks like it's not going to work out to take your question.
No,
so we'll try to address it in a different way.
See, she said, I need the mic. So that's what she was trying to do. She was trying to get a mic. So apparently they had microphones set up, but I guess for whatever reason, when it came to her, I think we know why. When it came to her question, they removed the microphone. So that way the question couldn't be asked. Now, why would they do that? Because the question was about the state of Israel. That's why.
But let me ask. I'm going to ask a final question up here.
She wants to speak. Why are you afraid for her to speak?
Why you don't have a microphone? But
that's all I need is a mic.
Why are you afraid for her to ask a question?
As a last question.
Are you a student?
I'm a graduate of CUNY, John J.
Are you a student?
She's a graduate of CUNY.
Yes.
So last question.
Last question. Okay, last question.
She wants to speak.
Last question.
See?
As a lifelong Jewish resident of New York City, I have a question.
The question was about what will
I'm
it take
iHeart. He
for...
wants.
See, he's such a pompous ass. You see how he's just... And why are they sitting in chairs that look like thrones? This is terrible.
Commented in New York City, we consider Jerusalem the sixth borough. Israeli citizens have universal health care like
in the midst of election where we were
in the
expected
United States
to
do not.
lose 40 to 50 or
68,000 plus die every year from lack of.
This is not democracy. Let her speak. Let her speak. Let her speak. Let her get her question in. Brooklyn. Fellow Brooklynite right here. Let her get her spit. Let her get her talking.
You're welcome to come. You're welcome to come to any town hall meeting that I have.
You're here now. You're asking what? Let her ask the question. She's here now. Let her ask the question. She's here now. This is democracy, right? We the people, right? Let her ask her question. Hakeem, let her ask her question. Let her ask the question. We the people. Remember that. East New York in the building. You shut up. East New York in the building.
So if I might invite everybody to join me on the shot.
Let her speak. We the people. Don't forget that. Don't forget that when you're up in Washington. We the people.
Let me thank the students who are here. Thank you for your willingness to use your skills, your talents, your ability to try to make the world
This
a
is
better
who's
place.
representing us. This is who's representing us.
The dysfunction and the excess that we see in
Disgusting.
American democracy is still
Such a pompous ass. Like, I really, oh God, it makes me cringe. It really does. It bothers me. Doesn't it bother you? But that's Hakeem Jeffries confronted. Now, that woman who was trying to speak, she wasn't yelling at Hakeem Jeffries. She just wanted a chance to ask her question. That's it. That's it. Let's go ahead and take the poll results, Eric, for that Trump-Biden poll. Is Trump's visit to Ohio a threat to Biden's reelection? Does it say how many people voted, Eric? I'm not sure. 936 votes. Okay. Is Trump's visit to Ohio a threat to Biden's reelection? 81% of you said yes. Okay, I don't think I've ever had a poll that's this this severe. 81% said yes, 8% said no, 11% said not sure. But 81%, geez Louise, that's a high one. That's a high one. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for that, Eric. All right, guys, we are going to do call in tonight. I know it's a little bit earlier, but I know you guys told me like if I could do these a little bit earlier instead of like late at night. So I totally hear you and I totally fear you. Thank you for the super chat, The King. Isn't it crazy the establishment left tried to gaslight us into thinking the PMC libs would ever be allies with us? Very good question. Good question. Kudos. All right. I am going to take a very quick break. Eric's going to come on. And then when I come back, we will hop on over to call in. Tonight's call in discussion is about the Max Blumenthal interview. But of course, you guys know when we go over there, you can bring up other stories from tonight's episode as well. So I'll be back.
All right. Here we go. So, all right. This is the time of the night when we give Sabby a little break before the call in. So to do call in, you can put it. We're going to give you the link here. Let me do something useful here and put the call in link into the chat. So the call in subject tonight is the Max Blumenthal interview recap. But of course, as Miss Sabrina said, you can talk about anything you like as well. And where'd it go? There we go. Hello, Steve. Hello, everyone. All right. So you can hit the link that's in the chat. We'll probably attach it to the chat later, or you can install or have the call-in app on your smartphone and participate that way. If you're just going straight into call-in, either way, if you don't have the link, you just search up Sabby Sabs, and it comes right up. All right. We had a few star chats queued up here. Thanks for the super chat, Daniel. Oh yeah, this was going to your earlier one. Yeah, when you're asking about good things to what are good things to good other things to put our money and energy into. And well, maybe if you get into the call-in, you could ask Sabrina that. And I know they talk about mutual aid, and that's definitely a thing, and to see causes that you like and whatnot. But that could be a call-in discussion. Mr. Bad Cookies with the scary avatar said that pipeline was bombed under a Dem president. If it was Trump, it would be on the news for months. Yep, I think you're right there, Bad Cookies, and hope to see you in the call-in. From Patron, yeah, he said Lord Jeffries only answers to his corporate APAC handlers. Very true, that one. In GL said, oh yeah, a bunch of NPCs in there. Yeah, that's definitely that comment was pretty based. Yeah, the NPC, the old in video games, the non-player characters that they have no will of their own. They're just programmed, and so yeah, that's what these crowds are like, and they're just there to take in the great words of instruction from the great leaders up in their ornate chairs. I don't know how many of you have seen all the Westworld series, but when you get towards the end of the Westworld series, there's a real storyline. I mean, I guess in general, the series talks about how about the idea of people just being programmed and operating in these loops, and just not even being aware of what their reality is really like. And then yeah, she was talking about the call-in being late or being earlier. And they could, so JK said prefer the late ones. Well, she'll do the late ones too, plenty of the time. And I don't know if anyone on call-in goes later than Sabby does. Oh, and then there was it's been a weird technical issues night tonight. I actually had the computer. There's a computer set up, an extra computer I use to show videos and things like that. And that computer like crashed and like totally died. So in the background here, I've actually been running around trying to make things work halfway smoothly. So that this worked at all was kind of a bit of a miracle. But it was strange. There was one super chat that came through, and it came through in a way that I couldn't manage to put it in the to highlight it. I couldn't highlight it. So, anyways, here's what it was. It was from Neoliberal Tears. Thanks for the super chat saying Marianne is running to the right of Trump on war. Thanks for that super chat. Wanted to make sure we captured, we showed that one, and hopefully I haven't been missing any others. This stuff gets pretty busy, especially like tonight. We had 1,000 watching, showing up for Max and for Sabby interviewing Max, and it was we had a good house, and things were relatively busy here. Someone along the way said that Sabrina's, when she streamed out, and a lot of good comments about Sabrina's stream of the rally, and that was cool. And I actually was going to go. Some family stuff got in the way, and I couldn't make it. But I did feel like I was there just from being in the stream. I think we were streaming for 4 or 5 hours, and so it can be pretty cool when you're there, when you even just viewing it and doing it vicariously. You can feel like you're there. So I thought that I saw that comment go by, and the other thing was like Trump showing up in East Palestine, I guess we call it. It's and Terry says, "Me too." Yeah, thanks. It's this whole thing of how the Democrats are so bad, and they they leave this huge lane open, and it becomes this easy thing for a shyster like Trump to come in and just come in and look like he's got the answers. And it's all part of the game, of course. I mean, both parties warmonger, corporate, corrupt, and I feel like we need to be hitting that more and making a point of that more. But that was definitely one thing that occurred to me. Somebody in the chat, said he left the lane. There's this wide lane open for Trump, and I thought Misty's Twitter comments was just dead on point. Saying that Trump doesn't give an F about you, but he's there, working it for him. And I just saw by. I don't want to miss here. Nice. Wait, is that the right one? Oh yeah. Yeah. Daniel just put in, how do I find the live schedule for this? Well, do you want to take that one, Sabrina?
My schedule.
I think that's what he means.
Yeah, so I go live on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the evening. This is earlier for me because Max requested that time. Typically, I would go live at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays, and on Thursday and Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I should probably put my live stream schedule on my channel under the About section. I should probably put that so people have it. But also, if you sign up for my newsletter, every time I go live, you'll get that alert, email alert that goes out at least 15 minutes before I go live. Everyone's telling me that they're getting those notifications, which is good because YouTube notifications don't always
Yeah, sign up for the Sabby newsletter. See you in the call-in.
Yeah. I thought you were doing Sundays. Yes, Sunday. Sorry, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Yes, those are the times I go live, and it's usually in the evening because busy during the day. So we're gonna head on over to call-in. Let me see if I forgot to put the link here. I always forgetting that. If you don't have the call-in app, that's totally fine. A lot of people don't, I think, but you can still access call-in from your computer. Let me go ahead and share that here. You can log on using the link pinned to the top of the chat on your computer, and you can still call in from your computer. That was a change that they made, I think it was like a month or so ago, which I think helped out a lot of people because some people did not want to download another app, and I totally get that. I get it. So tonight, on Call-In, episode 83, Max Blumenthal interview recap. How do you feel about the discussion between myself and Max about the rally and coalition building? Let's go ahead and have that discussion. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. Other than that, guys, I'll catch you over there. And you know how we do this? Have a good night. Keep up the fight.